Welcome back. I'm Tyler, you're watching Scarfing Scarves, and welcome to the 68th installment of Last Week Lolita News. At the top of the segment, no one cares about new releases, Closet of Frills is in flames, and in order to get to the seedy underbelly of the frick-frackery that caused it all, I welcome you to Last Week Lolita News' next special segment, in which this reporter tries to talk sense, most of it goes in one ear and out the other, and the community can continue on after this report knowing that nothing of value was remotely accomplished. Welcome to Your Replica is Bad and You Should Feel Bad. Let me front load this with, the replicas the Lolita community doesn't allow are intellectual property thefts such as stealing and using art, prints, or logos that aren't yours. Making a design copy of a dress that doesn't feature stolen artwork is legal and should remain so because no one should be able to copyright a ruffle or shape of a garment, or God forbid you'll be paying royalties to some fracking copyright troll every time you make a head bow. The reason being that no one should own the utilitarian pieces that make up clothing or the resulting amalgamation. And given that artwork, prints, and logos are not utilitarian pieces, you do not need them as the basics of construction, and thus the public interest versus artist ownership scale tips towards the creator, and you are not entitled to use them as you please. This encourages the artist to make things knowing they can earn from their investment of time and effort, and simply put, means more cool stuff for us all to enjoy. This has been a crash course in unfunny intellectual property rights. Now please enjoy your trip into the deepest reaches of human mediocrity. Because it all started in Closet of Frills, and more specifically with a post that I won't show you because the wearer of the replica isn't the issue here. Instead, we'll be focusing on the tire fire that erupted in the comments section. Suffice it to say, the person was wearing an obvious replica of Angelic Pretty's Holy Lantern OP. They initially posted it as if it was genuine AP, and people were not amused. The first comment out of the gate called the replica for what it was, the second said they were severely frowned upon, and the third rounded off that streak of sensibility by crying about how conflicted they were because they were happy to see someone, quote, who's not a petite size S was able to wear it. Which is especially funny given that we're talking about a sack dress. A literal potato could wear it just fine. And among all the sins against tits of size AP has committed, this giant pillowcase masquerading as a dress is not one of them. Holy Lantern's OP is incredibly roomy. Several plus-size Lolitas appeared to chime in the very same. Please find another excuse to support terrible quality and even worse business practices. Things proceeded in this vein until some Ren Fair looking fracker popped their head into the room to tell Replica-chan they should just ignore all the meanies and, quote, keep being amazing, whine about bullying and shaming, and rounded that off by implying that being against art theft is sizist, to which I can only say, careful that you don't dislocate your entire ass with that stretch. Again, this frock is not the inaccessible hill you want to die on. Do you even go here? This is the Lolita fashion community, not whatever party city you crawled out of, foam sword in hand. It was then that I presume our LARPer friend ran off to whatever public park would have them, and what followed was a wall of text that I will read to you verbatim, I'll bet quickly, because I'd like to finish this episode before the second coming. We shall call this person Beck Mantha, and when faced with people rightfully discouraging the proliferation of art theft, they had this to say.
Wow, nice attitude of everyone that are bashing the girl for wearing a replica. Oh, but it stretches. Yeah, have you ever considered that for some people, maybe it doesn't stretch enough because everybody here have different body types? It is not even an expensive dress. Interesting, because for me it is. Not everyone is paid in dollars in the world. Stealing from small artists, indie producers, is not nice, but AP is not losing money if it's a demand they don't offer for. Also, if she was buying original but secondhand, the brand wouldn't be receiving money either, but everyone would be okay with that. The company is rich, and not every one of us are. Nobody needs to embrace the replica, but at least embrace the people interested in Lolita fashion. Please don't make it exclusive.
Which is 1,000,000 milligrams of stupid that I'm going to have to break up into small doses. And let's tackle this point for point. Her claims that it doesn't stretch enough have been addressed. Currency differences do not entitle you to be an art thief. Counterfeiters will take money from your big brand replica and use it to replicate indie artists just as fast. AP offers plenty of dresses that fit larger girls, and this is one of them. The idea that buying secondhand is the same as buying a replica is a mental backflip that should have you landing on your metaphorical face, and maybe the impact would knock some sense into you because it takes a real frog licker to think that buying a genuine dress from the secondhand market, an act that supports the value of said dress and encourages sellers to continue buying and selling legitimate AP, both new and used, is the same as buying a fracking replica. Meaning real AP dresses retain value and you can sell them on the secondhand market if you don't like them to someone who does, in a positive feedback loop that supports the buying of new AP thereafter. The opposite of that being the replica buyer, whose money supports only the replica maker and actively devalues the real dress if left to proliferate, because if replicas are made acceptable in a community, then the actual brand who was designing things becomes demotivated to continue, knowing their work will just be stolen and sold cheaper. For all the money AP is making, they are not Jeff fracking Bezos. This is still a niche fashion, and anyone who thinks that replicas are acceptable in any way may as well be spitting in the face of the fantastic creators who've given us all the art and prints we cherish. Telling people that replicas aren't okay isn't being exclusive. It's the sensible response to counterfeiters actively undercutting the things we love. Encouraging people that wear them openly in our community is a precedent that you don't want to set if you don't want to be living in a post-Milano global domination kind of world. Cries that would likely fall on deaf ears, given that the person we're appealing to has all the sense of a stale macaron. Thankfully for us, an absolute saint pops up to explain how the secondhand market works in terms an inebriated squirrel would understand, point out that cherry-picking who gets to wear replicas isn't a good idea, art theft is art theft, and rounds off the entire thing by pointing out that there are myriad options for all sizes and budgets these days. For frack's sake, the number of 14-year-olds running around in Lolita cords that are more put together than full-blown adults back in the LJ days is near offensive. Okay, I added that last bit, but Lolita is so accessible these days, if you can't manage to pull together enough decent Taobao to match the attempts of a teenager on a shoestring budget, maybe try Sears. Thus ends our first act. Welcome to part 2, which I've christened The Frackening. Because everything that's transpired up to this point apparently isn't embarrassing enough to creation theory already, unless God's making some backwards mother frackers on purpose. No, things have to take a turn for the truly what-to-fuck, because it isn't a Sunday morning in the Lolita community unless someone takes the concept of common sense, turns it over, and beats the living daylights out of it in a public square. This is overly wordy for hold on to your hats. We shall call the author of this screed V for Vendetta, and what follows will be read verbatim, because I don't think there's any proper way to sum up what transpired other than watching them burst through the door, verbally upchuck into a bin, and then light the whole dumpster on fire.
Grab your crosses, ladies! She said replica. You all out there that are being absolute pricks can go roll into an AP design ditch. I'm sure AP was happy enough after releasing this a good 6 times. Made enough money off their fracking work. Freaking ankle biters, go bleed your sheep's blood to Tyler then and stop another plus-size girl from wearing Lolita, just like you bitches did to me back in 2013. She's already bashed half of the AP I ever wanted as shit dresses. I guess I'll be a drone and never wear Lolita then. My friend has bought secondhand AP dresses off Lace Market just like everyone else. This was the only one she bought off of eBay when she first started because she didn't know. I'm the one who told her it might be a replica, you fucking harpies. So I'll be sure to report back to you ladies and your Willis to see if it is.
That is a special kind of completely unhinged, I presume makes them a real hit at parties. I don't know when I became relevant to this conversation, but so long as Vendetta-chan has summoned Frilly Satan, I suppose I'll take a whack at translating what is essentially a wall of minimal punctuation, spelling errors, and all capping that must result from repeatedly striking your keyboard with your cat's ass until you produce a sentence. So in summary, this pinnacle of what would be satire if it wasn't written by a cat's butt essentially starts by suggesting that releasing something more than once means you don't own it anymore, implies that I encourage the ritual sacrifice of tiny sheep, that being against replicas is anti-plus size, calls the community bitches in all caps whilst claiming it stopped them from wearing the fashion, pretends a YouTuber not liking dresses that they do means they can't wear Lolita now like that's a thing, mentions that Replica-chan is their friend, that they bought the dress on eBay, and ended their painful diatribe by screaming that they told said friend that it might be a replica in all caps because that doesn't make them posting said dress to Closet of Frills while claiming it to be real all the more damning. Are you trying to help your friend or verbally hoist them on your own petard? I suggest you sacrifice some sheep of your own in hopes of summoning some goddamn spell check. And I don't know if I'm more amused by being called your Willis or by watching someone verbally piss themselves in public without first checking to see if they were defending a replica or not. She bought it from eBay for frack's sake. You can clock that limp neck bow at 50 paces. Congrats on your contribution to the copypasta world. You'll be joining such luminaries lives as my immortal B-movie and our darling Navy SEAL. Seriously, there are better ways to defend your friends than ejaculating a bunch of typos onto the internet. Try to keep your rage boner in your pants next time, and it's at this point that mods woke up and started deleting comments left and right, but not before Vendetta-chan contributed another wall of text no one needed and declared that they're too afraid to wear Lolita in public because they think a quote Jedi Lolita will see them, tell on them, and then screw their chances of joining a community. Which, congratulations, you've saved them all the trouble by telling on yourself. You may as well have screamed that your closet is full of replicas with a fracking traffic cone. Some question why construction equipment and not a megaphone. Others know I don't trust their ability to handle the complications of pushing the button before they talk. They're obviously not familiar with the enter key. The text needs to breathe more than you apparently need to air your grievances in the most illegible way possible. Vendetta-chan then thanks the mods for their traffic control like they weren't fully responsible for the car crash in the first place, and departs with the words, "Please make this a nice and beautiful community, not a scary one." Which sounds like words after the sissy Victoria's own heart, and leads us to our final point that will hopefully pull those of you still sitting on the fence bodily into the land of actual fracking reality. The amount of whining from new/Lolitas at heart in this thread was fracking ridiculous. The idea that someone telling you that replicas aren't okay is enough to scare you out of a fashion is the weakest of tea. And if the cloying hand-holding community of Vendetta-chan's dreams means we have to bend over backwards to pretty please ask replica buyers to maybe not support art theft with a cherry on top only if they feel like it, then I say we dial this bitch up to Freddy Krueger levels and show them what scary really is. The type that will actively buy and proliferate replicas even after being warned by their friends aren't usually susceptible to subtle nudges. And while I don't think anyone needs to dogpile a newbie until they cry blood, I'm willing to bet the type of people who watched that exchange and decided not to join the community are no great fracking loss. Those who will persevere afterwards will do so knowing that replicas are not to be tolerated. And while it may have been an uncomfortable exchange, more was learned than lost by the time the mods moved into nuke the entire thread. All that said, and to end this ride through hell, let me offer Exhibit A, in the form of some supposed newbie complimenting and asking where Replica-chan got her dress. This is what happens when you allow the posting of counterfeits. You make them look attractive/acceptable to other misinformed people who don't know any better. People who don't yet know what real quality looks like, and like the blind leading the blind, you encourage them to spend their money on a subpar illegal copy from a seller that will turn around and put that profit into stealing other designs. Designs from big and small artists to sell to clueless newbies who will in turn bolster the works of people who have in the past actively scammed and harassed the Lolita community. Milano is infamous for a reason, and the scammer you buy from today will absolutely turn around and copy some much smaller indie brand tomorrow. Because thieves don't discriminate. They line their pockets any way they can. And if that means pumping out shit quality copies of work they don't own, thereby cheapening the entire aesthetic and the ethics of those who buy from them, then they don't give two hairs on a rat's ass. But for those of you who do, for those Replica-chans out there still clinging to your side of the fence like a filthy dog avoiding its bath, let me tell you, Lolita fashion is first and foremost about quality. It is not a dress-up costume for your sparkle princess playtime. And should you still try to buy a replica after all of this, you can do so knowing that the community will sleep just fine, knowing that you spent money on something that looks like you gave a horse 2 pieces of fabric and slapped it on the ass. Seasoned Lolitas will always clock that shit-tier quality at a distance. And if nothing else, the inevitable shit fit and flounce it will produce will entertain us for years to come. Seek sympathy from someone who has sheep's blood to spare, because that's all the time we have for tonight. This has been Tyler. You've been watching Scarfing Scarves, and before a minute number of you go off to cry crocodile tears into your tea, I'd like to thank my patrons for giving this rage posting disguised as a news show the chance to exist. You guys are the only reason I haven't mainlined whiskey, and should you like to join their number, you can head over to patreon.com/lastweeklolitanews for more content that is screened for public safety. I recommend drinking to forget beforehand. Thanks again, guys, and I'll catch you next time.